Balangay Mother Boat, Unearthed in Butuan, by Timothy James Dimacali. The largest sailing vessels of its kind yet discovered is being unearthed in Butuan City in Mindanao, and it promises to rewrite Philippine maritime history as we know it. Estimated to be around 800 years old, the plank vessels may be centuries older than ships used by European explorers in the 16th century when they first came upon the archipelago, later named after a Spanish king, Las Islas Filipinas. National Museum archaeologist Dr. Mary Jane Louise A. Bologna, who leads the research team at the site, says almost everything about the newly discovered balangay is massive. She holds up her hand and curls her fingers into a circle, as if grasping a soda can. That's just one of the three nails used in its construction, Bologna says. An aptly descriptive term, a trenail, is wooden peg or dowel used in place of iron nails in boat building. So with nails that size, exactly how big is it boat? Bologna produced a piece of onion skin paper with a carefully inked map of the archaeologist site. On the upper corner is a roughly pea-pod shaped boat wreck, about 15 meters long. One of its similarly sized balangays discovered at the site since the 1970s, but right next to it, discovered only in 2012, are what the seem to be the remains of an named balangay so wide that it could easily fit the smaller craft into itself twice over, and that just the part that's been excavated so far. Although the boat has yet to be fully excavated, it's estimated to be at least 25 meters long. Aside from the three nails, the individual planks alone are each as broad as a man's chest. Roughly twice the weight of those used in other balangays on the site. The planks are so large that they can no longer be duplicated, because there are no more trees today big enough to make boards that size, according to Bologna. We just let the water seep and leave it at the because it's more protected than if you dry it. If you expose it without proper conservation, then it will disintegrate, she told JMA News. George Absite, officer in charge of the Butuan Museum, is hopeful that the new discovery will yield more insight about our Filipino ancestors. The Butuan Museum is tasked with supervising the care and protection of the balangay excavation and any artifacts found therein. Ito ang kasagutan sa missing link ng kultura natin. Kung ano ba talaga ang uri ng pamumuhay meron ang mga ninuno natin. This is the answer to a missing link in our culture on what kind of life our ancestors really have, Absite said. Everything depends on the construction and how the boat was built before you can properly call it a balangay, explained archaeologist and anthropologist Dr. Jesus Peralta. Said he has yet to see the newfound boat for himself. Nevertheless, the boat proximity to previous sites of buried balangays promises to send ripples through the academic world. Its mother boat, Bologna says with little hesitation, and it's changing the way we think about ancient Filipino seafarers. Rewriting Philippine history, it has long been established the Filipinos traveled across Southeast Asia as early as the 17th century, reaching as far as Champa, what is now the eastern coast of Vietnam, in groups of balangay. This group or flotillas have always been thought to consist of similarly sized small vessels, an idea perpetuated by the team barangay, the smallest administrative division of the present-day Philippine government. In 1003 AD, a Butuan chieftain petitioned the Chinese imperial court to allow it to bring its products direct to Guangdong instead of using Champa as the entrepôt, main trading post, Azorin added. However, according to Azorin, the petition was declined because the court insisted on regulating trade via Champa. He also says that Butuan may also have played a major role in the spread of culture and religion in the Philippines long before Christianity and even Islam came to the island. The boat's possible deeper significance is that it may be one of the carriers of Hindu-Buddhist cultural influence in the Philippine archipelago. Long before Islam and Christianity arrived here, many scholars also say that the Baybayin script arrived here through the same connection with Champa. Hence, you can deepen the cultural legacy of our ancestors, Azurin said. That's a possible conjecture, considering that archaeologists like Robert Fox and the other have pointed out that some islands in southern Philippines had communities In any case, the mother boat and the smaller balangas in Butuan were definitely made for exploring the high seas, according to Dr. Bologna. She said Philippines long before Christianity and even Islam came to the island. The boat's possible deeper significance is that it may be one of the carriers of Hindu-Buddhist cultural influence in the Philippine archipelago. Long before Islam and Christianity arrived here, many scholars also say that the Baybayin script arrived here through the same connection with Champa. Hence, you can deepen the cultural legacy of our ancestors, Azurin said. That's a possible conjecture, considering that archaeologists like Robert Fox and the other have pointed out that some islands in southern Philippines had communities In any case, the mother boat and the smaller balangas in Butuan were definitely made for exploring the high seas, according to Dr. Bologna. She says, their overall shape and construction are suited to navigation deep ocean water more than shallow rivers. The presence of quarter rudder and sails would also indicate a sea-going vessel. Although these have yet to be found, Dr. Bologna says, that's especially true for a boat that size, she says of the giant balangay. Even today, the Samabadya of Sulu still practice boat building techniques that are strikingly similar to those used in constructing the Butuan boats. In 2010, replica balangas built by Samabadya craftsmen and manned by Filipino adventurers completed a 14,000-kilometer journey across Southeast Asia, proving the seaworthiness of original balangas in the traditional woodcraft used to construct them. One of the boats, the 15-meter long Diwata ng Lahi, is now on permanent display outside the National Museum in Manila. Textual evidence of large boats. Villegas believes it was only a matter of time before a boat of this size was found, pointing out the historical accounts about similarly grand Filipino vessels. For example, Pigafetta also documented the existence of a boat fit for a king. He surcamped two long boats which they call balangay, full of men, and the largest of them was their king sitting under an awning of mats, he wrote. Scott also hinted at the existence of even more impressive vessels. The most celebrated Visayan vessel was the warship called Caracoa, which could mount 40-meter-long oars on the side. The current technique with which Filipinos built them makes their ships sail like birds, while ours are likely in comparison. Scott quoted a Spanish priest as having written in 1667. However, no large Filipino vessels have been discovered and excavated until now. If the Butuan mother boat is indeed of ancient origins, historians have always known there were other large boats. We should expect to find big boats because we know they existed, villages said. It's just that a national museum only now has the funds to do excavations. There's a lot to be found even just in Butuan, he added. Lingering mysteries of Butuan. Dr. Bulunia and her team plan to return to Butuan in September to complete the excavation and hopefully to date the massive new find. They also plan to take a core sample from the ground in the hopes of answering one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the Butuan balangays. Dr. Bulunia explains that the archaeological site, although now inland, was once an alcove that opened out to the sea. She says that all the balangays are found dry dock on that was once the Butuan seashore. That the vessels were so well preserved and largely because they were buried intact in the submergence of the area over succeeding centuries keep the wood from decaying. But exactly how did the Butuan balangays get buried there in the first place? Dr. Bulunia says there are two competing theories. Either the boat were intentionally buried or they were left behind after a sudden cataclysm, such as a landslide from earthquake. If the boats were purposely abandoned, why did the builders take the trouble of burying them? But on the other hand, where is the evidence of natural calamity that might have befallen the boats and their builders? These are among the many remaining questions that face probers of the Philippines' ancient past. If Dr. Bulunia's hunches are correct about the latest find in Butuan, the mother boat could be the key to unlocking answers about how our Filipinos ancestors lived, explored, and fought.